In this episode, I sit down with Brandon Knox out of Nashville, Tennessee, and we discuss how he's been able to build a team to sell over $850 million in closed transactions, which is staggering. As well, we talk about the value of having that one thing that you focus on in your business and how mindset plays a huge part of that. As always, I'm your referral partner out of San Francisco, Shawn Kunkler. Brandon, man, thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely, Shawn. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
Dude, I have to say, and this is more for the listeners to give them some context, because I am incredibly stoked to have you here. This is just straight off your website and then according to national stats, but you're ranked, the Knox team, I should say, is ranked or was ranked number one for top listings and top selling in the Greater Nashville area. And then in addition to, your team has closed over 3,500 transactions and has done over 850 million in sales volume. Dude, I'm just blown away by those stats. And then briefly talking to you, you're super humble and not this ego driven person, which I really appreciate.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Now I should clarify. 3,500 includes land deals and houses. It's not all just houses. I sell a lot of land tracts as well.
And that's fair. And I definitely want to unpack the layers to it, because the profile of your business is pretty unique to how, we all build our businesses our way. And so you've done it in a very unique and highly successful way. Can you give kind of an overview of, you have essentially two businesses that are symbiotic, feeding each other. What are they?
I've been a real estate agent since 2008. I've been a broker since 2011. And so we kind of have, we have three divisions. So we have a land acquisition that does land acquisition for clients, mostly builders and developers. And we will help with them identify land, identify lots. We will help them go through a rezone process or an adaptive reuse process or something like that. And then we have new construction sales, which kind of comes from that land side. So essentially, after we get those builders and developers their land, after we get it entitled or help get it entitled for single family, townhomes, whatever it is, then we sell a lot of that new construction. And then we have a luxury sales division where we sell a lot of high-end resales and high-end new construction. So that's sort of the myriad of what we do. And yes, to answer your question, that yes, I do have two businesses. I also have a business that invests. It's an investment entity vehicle. It's our family business. And basically what we do with that is we joint venture with builders and developers to build stuff. So if a builder has, say, 10 lots in a subdivision, and for whatever reason, whether it's their bank or whether it's their own personal finances, they only can do 5 at a time and they'd like to do all 10. We'll come alongside that builder and we'll pull the financing on the other 5. We'll do the debt service to the bank. We'll, pay the bi-monthly draws, and then get that house to completion. The builder will build all 10, but we'll finance the other 5. And in exchange for that, our team will list our 5 as well as the builder's 5 in exchange for providing the financing for half. And so that business sort of works in a circle because we buy the dirt. We build the stuff with the builder. We sell the stuff. There's commissions for the team. There's money back to the family entity to buy more dirt. So it sort of works in a circle, if you will.
That's a fascinating approach. And I would imagine from the builder's perspective, you also have skin in the game. So there's a different level. Of course, we have a fiduciary responsibility, but there's a different level when somebody's a partner with you, because they're actually vested and invested in this thing to perform.
You said exactly, Shawn. We're truly in this together, and we're helping each other. The builder is helping me because I'm getting in on 10 listings I might not have been selected as the agent if it was just him interviewing agents, and he's getting to build all 10 of his houses at the time frame he wants without having to wait a whole cycle. And then, of course, the people on our team are getting listings to work for buyers and sellers that they might not have gotten. And the bank's happy because they're seeing multiple people on the debt, which makes them feel comfortable with the exposure levels. So it's sort of a win-win for everybody. We're all in it together, and nobody gets paid till the end. So we're all in that road together till the very last day.
That's such a fascinating way to approach it. And to your point, you're touching different aspects of it. And so each business is essentially feeding the next as you go through it. So back us up a little bit. How did you get into this business model?
I certainly didn't go looking for it initially. So I was, as you said, I was living in New York City. So I was in New York City for 13 years. The last 6 years that I was in New York, I was a broker at Corcoran Group. And I was selling a lot of new construction and all the things. And my wife and I had a great team there. We were top 1% of NRT at the time. And to make a very long story short, we decided to move to Nashville where my wife grew up, and we wanted to raise our children here. I kept working in New York for 2 years. I would go back and forth about every 10 days or so. I had a decent book of business still in New York. This was in 2013. So 2013, 2014, it's back and forth in New York. 2015, I found out that my wife was going to have our second child, our son. And I decided that I couldn't be going back and forth with two young children. So I started looking for a way to replace the New York business. I'd been quietly building our Nashville business for 2 years, but it hadn't gotten, that significant yet. It was still kind of in its infancy. So I was looking for a way to replace the New York income, because the price per square foot was so much higher in Manhattan. You could sell many less units and make more money with those price per square foot. And the Nashville price per square foot was much smaller. So I started to look at all the builders here. I started to look at all the developers, and I started to notice that a lot of them, not the big ones. The big ones didn't need someone like me, but a lot of the smaller ones at the time, they didn't have anyone that was doing land acquisition for them. They didn't have somebody on staff or on salary whose job it was to find land and lots, vet them, confirm the buildability, setbacks, all the requirements, and then bring them. So what I started doing was essentially meeting all the builders in town, meeting all the developers in town, the small to sort of medium-sized groups, and finding out, where do you like to build? What product do you like to build? What's your buy box in terms of what you can spend for dirt against what your exit price is going to be, et cetera. And I started to learn them all and meet them all, and I was able to find many of them land. And so that was great because it did a service for them. They kept their land pipeline full versus having to, buy a bunch, build a bunch, stop, go look for more, and start the process over. So I was able to help them. And then conversely, with all this dirt I was giving them, it was all of a sudden building listings, because they were saying, look, the way I work, if you bring me the dirt and I buy it and I build something there, as a spec, I'm going to list it with whoever brought me the land. So next thing I know, all these land and lots that I've been bringing that I hadn't really thought much about, because I'm just feeding these guys land and making a small commission on the land sale. All of a sudden, there's houses built everywhere, and they're coming back to me and saying, "Hey, those 5 lots you brought me that you might have made 20 grand on 5 lots. Well, now I've got $5 million houses, and now all of a sudden, there's a 200,000 commission. So I started listing all those houses, and I built a team around that. And then to answer the end part of your question, I started doing that on their behalf for a long time, and then I started to notice that I was giving them so many lots and so many opportunities that they couldn't do them all, or their banks didn't want them to do them all at once. And so they were starting to have to do what we call land banking, where they're buying more dirt than they can use, and they're land banking the dirt, which is fine if you pay cash for the dirt, but it starts to become a problem if you're buying a bunch of land at 20 or 30% down, and you're paying a monthly payment to hold the land, and your bank says, we're not going to let you build that for 2 years until all this land's built. Well, that's a problem. And so I started approaching them about what would it look like if I came alongside you, and what would it look like if I invested in some of these with you. I'd save my money from commissions and for my New York business and whatnot. And so, I had some cash to put down at the bank, which qualified me for a construction line of credit. And I just said, what if I came along with you guys and we built them together? You're already using me to find the dirt. You're already using me to sell the end house. What's the difference about being in the middle? And some of them didn't like that idea, and they thought it was a conflict of interest, and that's fine. But many of them thought, hey, this is great, let's do it. And I've been doing that heavily since 2015.
There's a bunch of things that I've gleaned from you, but one of them, it sounds like you're just really curious of like, there's another way to work on this. How can we approach this? There's another solution here?
To be honest, Shawn, I've told anybody this that I've ever spoken to about this, is like a lot of it came out of just like desperation, and not, maybe not desperation is the wrong word, but just like what am I going to do? I'm used to this New York income. It's totally gone. I have a young family. I mean, I'm going to have to sell hundreds and hundreds of houses at the price per square foot that, Nashville was at that time. It's gone way up since then. But at the time, it's like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm one person. I can't go sell 300 houses to make the same amount of money, based on these commissions down here. So it's like, how can I, pull something else into my fold that still uses the skill sets that I have? Because, I have a select set of skill sets and I know a select things and I don't know other things. So it's like, I know real estate and I know dirt, and it made sense.
What experience did you have in the building? Did you have any construction in your background?
Not really. I had worked in some new dev in New York. So, I mean, I was around new dev, but that's more like high rises, condos, as far as like single family construction, I didn't have a lot of experience. Growing up, my mom had been like a fix and flipper. So, I had some experience helping her in the summers, but that was just, remodeling a small house. I grew up in Austin, Texas area. So it's like, that was just, her buying a small house, remodeling it, fixing the bathroom and kitchen, whatever, painting it and selling it. So nothing from the ground up. I just had an interest in it. The whole process of it fascinated me. And I saw, honestly, I saw the money these guys were making and the spreads. And I also saw how smart they were. Like, a lot of these guys make money at every stage, meaning like, they buy the land and then maybe they subdivide it, which creates value there because now they paid $100,000 for 2 lots. Now it's 4. Well, now they're at a $25,000 lot basis instead of a $50,000 lot basis. So it's just, and then as they go vertical, they're getting money. And I started to see that there's multiple ways to get paid on one transaction. It's kind of like some of these national developers that, they also own the mortgage company and they also own the civil company. So they're getting paid to put the sewer in. They're getting paid to make you a loan on the house that you're buying from them too. It's on a much smaller scale, but it's that same idea.
The more ways you can touch a customer, the more ways you're going to reap benefit, especially if you're actually providing really high quality service and outstanding value.
It was a way to sort of insert myself without having to cause any kind of disruption, because a lot of these guys, they welcomed it because they were having their hands tied with what the banks were allowing them to do. And so I'm helping them get through stuff faster, which means they can turn their money quicker. And, if they're building more houses, they can employ more subs. If they employ more subs, they get better rates. And if they get better rates, their pro formas look better and their projections look better, on their houses. If the projections look better, the bank will let them do more of their own things because they like the margins and they like the timelines and the money stays active. So it's a win. It was win-win for everybody. And, the result is that, with getting all these builders all this land and having them build all these houses and then us getting the opportunity to sell them, resulted in us being, the number one new construction team in Nashville, which just kind of happened. It was never my goal. I just wanted to have a great business and provide. I never sat down and said like, I'm going to be the number one new construction guy. It just sort of came out of that.
Yeah. Hard work begets results. And if you're just out there working your tail off. So obviously the interest rates have radically changed over the course of the past year, and it's changing the profile of all of our businesses, yours included. What are the new opportunities you're seeing to pivot and to roll that into a new direction for yourself? Or are you just doubling down on what you're doing?
I literally have a thing on my wall. That's, it's my one thing. If you ever do any kind of business or coaching or remember any of that old KW stuff, you know what I'm talking about. But my one thing is to double the amount of clients we represent, which are going to be buyers. I'm literally reading off the wall: buyers, sellers, builders, and investors, and then double the amount of effort that we put into those clients. So I am doubling down from one standpoint. I'm obviously being smart because, we don't want to double down and just end up, double in debt or double in trouble. The way I'm looking at it is, from a new construction standpoint, when someone's approaching a deal, when we're looking at, this lot over here, and we're looking at it, we're saying, okay, let's do a pro forma. We underwrite everything internally before we even, write a contract on the land or even try to turn anything into a bank. We say, okay, what can we buy? What will just as an example, what will a 2,500 square foot house that's a 4.3 with a 2-car garage, what will that sell for here? Okay. So we get the back end, then from there we can back into what we can pay for the dirt. And if it all packages up, what we always do is we make these pro formas, and in the pro forma we have all these contingency line items. So we're assuming we're going to pay X percentage towards a closing cost, prepaids, or title for a buyer. We're assuming that we're going to have X number a month interest carry. at X rate. So we know how much money that's going to cost. We're assuming that we're going to be on the market, contract to close for X time. So we put all that stuff in the pro forma. And what has been happening is the last few years, we've been putting all that stuff into the pro forma, but we've been outperforming that. We didn't have to give any concessions to the buyer. It took way less time than we thought to sell. It sold for more than we had projected, like all great. What's happening now is that the buyer is asking for stuff. So now the buyer wants those closing costs. They want the prepaids. They want title. They want a fridge and a washer and dryer and blinds on the first floor. They want a privacy fence around back. They want 2 or 3 or 4 points towards a rate buy down. The interest carry, that we factor that 4.5%, for 6 months becomes 8% for 12 months because the interest rates went up during the build cycle and that took us longer to complete. So what we're doing now is we're padding the performers and we're saying, okay, we expected to make this return. What's the minimum return that we find acceptable and that we would still do these transactions at? And if a deal meets that threshold, then we do the deal. And we expect to pay the buyer's closing costs, and we expect to give them a rate buy down, and we expect to pay the buyer's agent an extra bonus to show our house versus the next guy's. And we expect all that, and it's priced into the deal. If we don't have to pay any of that, great. That goes back to the bottom line to be JV split, but we expect that. So if the deal still pencils at the minimum return, then do the deal and hope that we don't have to pay something within one of those contingencies. Hopefully won't come to pass, but if they do, we're okay. So that's kind of how we've been, from the new construction standpoint, how we've been combating it.
Yeah, man. I mean, it definitely sounds like your numbers, which you have to, because the margins they get tight, especially as things and markets shift and change and evolve. What's interesting, and I kind of want to jump around a little bit, because you've built this business for the past 10 years and you basically started from zero. And then prior to that, you started in New York in 2008, which if we all rewind and remember what happened in 2008, that was a radically different market and incredibly hard. And you built and created a really strong, outstanding company there for 13 years. And so my question that I would love to volley to you, because you literally have 2 different careers in 2 different markets, outpacing most agents in general. What would be, if you were going to start a third, what would be the one thing that you would do to kick it off? And ultimately, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give to an agent who is cutting their teeth in this type of market?
Yeah, and to clarify, I was in New York City for 13, but I was only at corporate in the last 6. Before that, I was actually in hospitality management. But yes, so first of all, yeah, what works for one person at one time, may not work for the next person, even if they do the exact same things, because there's a lot to be said for being first to market. There's a lot to be said for, being the first one to try something. I think first piece of advice I would give to people is you've got to keep your attention on your intention. And I think that in today's world, that's why I said social media is the devil earlier, partly why, because, we're so distracted. It's so hard to focus. I don't care who you are. It is so hard to focus, and it's so hard to remain focused for any length of time. And that's why I always say, if you can find a way to keep your attention on the thing you intend to do, and agents, it never ceases to amaze me. And I don't mean to I hope I don't ruffle feathers for anyone watching this, but agents out there, just assume I'm not talking about you who's watching it. It's the other agents, of course. But nobody answers their phone. Nobody responds to text messages. No one responds to emails. People are late to meetings, or they ghost you. I got ghosted today. Today, I got ghosted at a meeting that somebody said that they wanted me to be there to understand the property, and they were only going to show the property if I would meet, and they didn't come. So it's like, if agents, get up in the morning, suit up and show up, even if you have nothing to do, even if you have a completely blank calendar, dress for success and go and do things. So I would say, get up, suit up and show up, be intentional, be communicative. Is that a word? Yeah. Just communicate with other people, communicate with other agents, communicate with people you want to be your clients. Like answer your calls, answer your texts, answer your emails. it amazes me how many agents and also people in the building world, subcontractors, they don't respond, and there's just no sense of urgency. And I think the last thing I'll say about it is, because this is something I struggle with a lot, because I'm somebody that tends to just always kind of operate from a place of like almost anxiety. But I think that all that almost anxiety also makes me really sharp and really good at what I do. But I think that there's a way to have a sense of urgency about your life and about your business and about the things you want to do without having a sense of anxiety around it. So that's what that would be my advice.
That's a huge piece of advice, and I could not agree more. Recently, I had a referral going out, and it was a Friday night, so I'll give people a pass on that. And it was late. It was later in the evening. It was about 7:00. I had a really dear friend of mine ping me and say, "Hey, I want to look at this property tomorrow. Do you know anybody in this market?" And so he was ready to go. And I put out a handful of calls. The voicemail literally said, "Hey, I have a referral. It's a really good friend of mine. He's ready to go. Call me back. He needs to look at this property." I probably called 6 people. 3 people never called me back. Nobody answered the phone. The one guy who didn't answer the phone, he was like, "Hey, so sorry, on another call." He texted me like while I'm leaving a voicemail. He said, "Hey, so sorry, I'm on another call. I'll call you back within 5 minutes." And he did. And he's the one who won the business. And you're right. It's the, just showing up and letting people know is such a huge win. And that's your very first opportunity to build trust with that other person. The very first.
It's just simple stuff. I mean, I'm sorry I didn't say anything, profound, but it's just like, to me, like that's the basic, man. And, and when I started about get up and showing up, like I'm an office guy. I love get up in the morning and going to the office. And I know that's not everyone's story. And a lot of people would say, "Oh, well, I make business at the coffee shop, or I make business at the gym or the golf course." That's great. But for me, all I mean is whatever it is that you do every day, whether you go work your gym sphere, or you go work your coffee shop or your golf course sphere, it's like it's getting up and getting there and doing that day in and day out, and not just like when you feel like it, like making it a habit so that you can have that habit of success versus only when you feel inspired you're going to go do it. Because we're not always inspired and motivated, and like I'm big on trying to create those recurring habits that you do because it's what you do that help you lead towards success, or at least put you in a position to have an opportunity to, be successful.
To your point earlier about, the markets are different, whether you're first to market. And so it doesn't always apply from one person to the next. But there's a quote, "The harder I work, the luckier I get." And it goes back to your point. If you're just consistent with that, with that one thing, it's like going to the gym. If you just consistently go on a regular basis, you will start seeing results.
It's amazing how that works.
Oh, I go when I feel like it. How often is that? Once a month. Great. How's that working out for you?
Well, I just think, especially in this market, like, it's been easy to be in real estate the last few years, but, I heard some stat, and I might be butchering the stat, but something like 1 million agents are going to go out of business in the next year, or between the last 6 months and the next year, whatever it was. And I just think, like, people aren't necessarily looking for what the people are looking for, someone they can rely on. And especially if like they're in any kind of real estate where there's a potential for them to be upside down and be in a bad position. There's some builders in town here that, have some real estate holdings that, they're going to need to sell. They're going to go to the person that's going to get it done. They're not going to go to the person whose Instagram's the cutest or who looks the best on camera. Like they're going to go to the person that says, like, if I have one shot to get this done, who am I calling? Who am I going to work with? And I think that's what I mean by that is like people just, if people know that you're somebody that is consistent, that does what they say they do, that gets in there and gets after it, like you're going to win business. And I don't know what philosopher said it, but somebody told me once a quote he had heard that basically said, all you need to be successful in business is like 20 people that are like your huge Stark Raving fans. You got 20 people out there that love what you do and talk to you about you anytime real estate comes up. You build a whole business around that.
Dan Kennedy is a famous marketer who was, I don't know if he originated it, but I've heard him say it multiple times. But, within that, for example, you're known within a niche and you're constantly doing that one thing over and over and over and over. And so whoever that developer is needs that opportunity. They're going to think about who was the last person that they were in communication with and who's the expert within that niche. So it's a slam dunk that they go back to you, and you've had the consistency of duration. You've been in the business for a decade. And it's not just you, it's all the people you're working with on your team who is also representing you.
We have a great team, a great director of operations, marketing, and and the other thing, I was going to say in Nashville is, when I moved here, there wasn't that many people that did this, and the market has become very sophisticated here. There is a lot of fantastic. I want to shout out to the other agents watching. There are a lot of fantastic agents here. There are a lot of really smart people that work here already or that have moved here in the last 10 years that I've been here. But one thing where I'm able to consistently, we've won number one team in Nashville 4 times in 10 years. And it's the consistency of just do what you do really well, and the people and your people that will come, right? Just concentrate on doing what you do really, really well, and don't worry about, I try not to allow myself to be scrolling on social and see some, beautiful curated thing that some other broker did to be like, oh, wow, my stuff's much more, working class or whatever you want to call it than that. But it's because no, this is what I do and I stick to it. And the clients will come and the people who need me will come, and there's room for everybody. And I think that's important too, as an agent, to go back to your question, what I tell a young agent, you can't do everything for everybody. And, I personally think start with some niche things you do, and then you can always expand upon that as you get bigger. And remember, and the first time you get a little success, don't become a total jerk. I know some agents that started making really good money, and now it's I used to call or text them, and now it's I call or text them, and then 10 minutes later, their assistant calls or texts me back. And it's okay, fine, but you don't have to, don't forget how you got where you are.
And it's true. Our reputations within the community, because we're only half of the deal. There's another agent out there who's bringing the buyer, or we're going to potentially put an offer on their property. And so, yeah, I think there's agents who leave a trail of broken glass, and there's agents who you would do anything to work with again on another transaction, just because they're so, to your point, communicative, they're on point, and they make it easy for you. So let's talk a little bit about your team. With having these multiple hubs, there's no way you can do it alone. So you obviously have to have amazing people around you. With the real estate portion of it, what does your team profile look like? And more specifically, what's your role within that?
Yeah, so we actually have a small team. We've had at one point we had as many as 19 people, and that was between New York and Nashville. Now we're down to, so there's my wife and I, so we're the partners. I'm the managing partner, my wife's partner. She also does a lot of our community engagement. She does a lot of our charitable stuff. She's our liaison to the community. And she also is part of Compass Cares. So she's the Compass Cares liaison to the charity outreach in Nashville. Just her and I. We have two guys that have been with me a long time, Ollie and Will, that sell. So they're not buyer's agents or listing agents. They just kind of do both. But there's just 2 of them. And they will work their own sphere, their own client books, and then they'll work a lot of things that I bring them in on. So whether that's my own stuff that I'm building, or whether that's a developer client of mine that has a neighborhood that needs, staffed, so we have those 2. And then we have a director of operations, Denise, who kind of runs the ship from behind the scenes. And Denise is assisted by a marketing person named Amber, and Amber does a lot of our listing input, our email blasts, social media, a lot of stuff like that. And then we had a researcher that was with me for 9 years, but he took another job, which I was happy to see him do because it was something he wanted to do. So we haven't replaced that. I don't know if we will, but that's really all we have. And then of course we have all kinds of people that we, contract on a need basis, whether it's photographers or video people or whatever. And so that's us for the real estate. It's really small but mighty. We like being that small team. So in Real Trends, we were the number 1 small team in Tennessee. We're the number 2 small team in the country. But that's based on just having 5 people or less. So if we went over 6, then, our rankings would be much different, I think. But that's why I love staying small. And it's just enough to do the things that we want to do. Because most of what we do is the new construction stuff. And the beauty of that is that each of the builders that we partner with, there's 3 builders specifically that I partner with, but each one of those builders will have 15, 20, 25 employees on staff. So in a way, I have access to those, 60, 80 people. But I don't have to think about, all of their schedules or, HR, PR, 401k, salaries. Like I deal with the builder, and then him and I have what we need to get done. And then his team goes and does it. And if I need any of them, I can always call them and they all know me and pick up. But, it's not my responsibility. So I structured it that way on purpose so that I could do the building in multiple markets. I'm all across Tennessee, and I'm working on getting into 2 other states right now with that too.
That's impressive. How small but mighty your team is. There's so many bloated teams out there that you look at the big number and they're doing great work. And then if you start dividing it out, and you're like, well, actually each team member they're not heavy hitters. And it sounds like your team is all A-star players.
Everybody, is a full-time agent and makes, good income. And it's, it always shocks me when, I'll see a team that, has, a half or 60% of my production, and they've got, we're hiring for 6 new buyer's agents. And then, you pull them up in the, broker metrics, and it's like, man, how are they living off of 2 or 3 deals each a year? I don't get it, And why does a team that has half my production need 5 times the people? Like, what is everybody doing? So I don't know. I mean, I don't believe in part-time agents. I don't think you can do this business part-time.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that if you have a plan B, that your plan B is you're playing to fail. I think honestly, I'm kind of a burn the boats guy. Back in Greek mythology, they invade and they burn the boats so they can't leave. That's kind of my thing. Like I'm all in on real estate. If somebody's watching this back in 10 years and I'm selling insurance, hey, it didn't work. That's all I know, man. Like I'm 41 years old. Like I'm not doing anything else, man. I've already been doing this 15 years. So it's like, I'm not doing anything else.
One of my favorite quotes of all time is burn the ships. 100% is like,
100%, man.
This is either going to work or I'm going to die. Like that's
kind of though. Kind of. I mean, yes.
It even goes back to your point of, I don't know what the right word was, and it sounded like you were struggling with it too. You're not coming from a point of desperation, but there's a point that you're coming from where it's like, I can't fail. It's not that this can't fail. It's, I'm going to look for a way. And if I meet an obstacle, I'm going to go over it. I'm going to go under it. I'm going to go around it. I'm going to through it. But I'm not stopping when I get to, I'm not going to suddenly pull out a plan B and be like, oh, we're going to turn directions and change the whole business model.
Yeah, man, I'm not. And honestly, like, I've never, like, I haven't worked for anyone else since I was like, in terms of like, I haven't had like a direct boss or had a corporate job or where since I was like 19. Like, I think I would just be a disaster. First of all, I'm sure I'd say the wrong thing and HR would get called. I didn't mean, I'm not, I have to do what I'm doing or at least stuff in this vein. I think I'd be useless pretty much anywhere else. Like I'm trying to picture myself going into the office and I don't know, explain the Excel sheet to everybody or whatever it is. It's just like, I just suck at it, man.
I agree. I'm 100% not hireable. Like I have to work for myself. That is my passion. And there's a similar, I hear you. And there's a similar psychology. And it's interesting from having the privilege and the honor of sitting with all these amazing agents all over the US. There are absolutely common threads. There's common threads in their psychology, the way they approach the business, the way that they really distill down, like, this is the objective and we're going for it. And in their mind, it's already happening or it's already happened. It's not, well, we'll see. It's a very different, their vocabulary is different. Their focus is different. Their drive is different. But what I really admire about the way that you've built your business is you genuinely figured out what is working and then you went all in. You just went super hard on the paint in that category. Whereas other people, they get, to your point earlier, they get distracted They're like, oh, this is working amazing. Let me try this over here and stop doing this amazing thing that was actually paying the bills. And then they start running in all these different directions. And they genuinely have what it takes to be an A+ performer, but they just don't have that discipline to stay focused on just show up and do this one thing, over and over and over.
I have a business coach that I just started working with in Atlanta, and he's always talking about, he calls them the 4 horsemen. And it's like drift, distraction, dispersion. I forget what the 4th D is, of course, now I'm here on camera. But, and it's especially that drift one, because drift, you don't realize you're drifting, and then all of a sudden you go, what am I doing? How did I get here? I thought we were doing this, and you just casually went off course. And I'm really trying to combat that. I mean, I even have reminders in my phone, which again, I can't take credit for. It's something that they put me on. It literally pops up like, what are you scheduled to be doing right now? What are you supposed to be doing right now? And, and you need a course correction. And it's hard. It's hard to stay on track, especially in today's world. There's so much chatter, but, we're doing the best we can.
And I appreciate too that you shared that you have a coach. And I feel like that's often it's overlooked. People think once you're performing on this high level, you no longer need a coach. And my default is I came from sports, and, I look at somebody like Michael Jordan, who won an ungodly amount of rings. And no matter how many rings he got, he always had a coach. There's always somebody there who's looking at you from a different perspective, who can just shine a little bit of light of like, are you drifting? And then you have to figure it out. You have to analyze it and then get yourself back on course if you are. It's a challenge. I mean, especially, when things are going really well.
High achievers think they can do everything, and they say yes to everything. And and on the outside looking in, it looks like they're kind of doing really well at balancing 12 different things. But like, the more you achieve, the more you realize that you need focus to achieve. And for me, like, that's my big thing. Like, if I sold, half the production next year as this year, but I got really good at focusing and dialing in, and I would consider it a win. That's my big thing right now, because I have some big dreams, some big goals, and I want to level up. But I know that I have to focus, because, not to sound too cliche, but I have these goals and dreams, and I know that right now today, I am not the person that's capable of them. But I think I can grow into the person that's capable of them through intentionality and focus. So that's my goal, is to grow into the person that's capable of accomplishing the things that I've set out.
There's a beauty and elegance to that too, is, the point of a goal isn't achieving the goal. The point of the goal is to transform yourself into the person you need to become to maintain that level.
100%.
That growth is inspiring. Selling an extra house, sure, it feels good and it's a nice paycheck, but it hasn't transformed me or the team into that next level. And it sounds like with your team that you're all very clearly, if they've been with you for a long time and it's highly concentrated, it sounds like you're symbiotic in the goal, and you're all working to grow each other along the way.
Yeah, and there's obviously we have, just like any team or family, we have our challenges, but there's an underlying loyalty there, and a love, if you will, that outweighs it, So, but yeah, I mean, we're all on the journey. I'm on the journey to grow into the person that will level up, and so, I'm not sure where we are on the path right now, but we're on it. I think we're on it. I hope I didn't drift off it.
Your team will let you know. That's for sure. Especially if you have really good people around you, they will hold up the mirror too and be like, "Hey, what are we doing here? Are we on the right path?" Brandon, this has been amazing. I with all that you have going on, I genuinely appreciate you carving out the time to sit down and hang out with this audience and share your vast intel. So thank you. If somebody wants to find you, refer a business to you, or pick your brain, what's the best way they can look you up?
My website is knoxopensdoors.com. There's an S on opens and S on doors. So www.knoxopensdoors.com. Email is brandon@knoxopensdoors.com. You can follow us on all the social medias. We're at Knox Team Nashville, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk to anybody about anything, especially real estate.
I just want to clarify for the listeners. It's KNOX. So it's KNOX opens doors, which I actually find is brilliant. That's whoever came up with that. That's amazing. Knox opens doors.
Yeah, I mean, here it is on my shirt. I mean, you can kind of see knoxopenstores.com. Or no, that's all right. This side. I'm backwards. I'll give you this funny story. So we're in New York City. I'm starting the team. It's 2008 summer, and we're out with another couple, and we're all drinking sangria. And the wife and the other couple keeps reaching across the table and tapping my forehead, which is kind of getting like irritated. Why stop it? She's like, Knox, 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 Knox. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she goes, Knox opens doors. And she's like messing with my face. Well, like, stop. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I kind of like that. She's like drunk on sangria. This was on the west side of Manhattan over on the Hudson River. And I'm like, I'm taking that. And I literally like went to GoDaddy or whatever it was and bought the domain like the next day.
Kudos for recognizing that moment. And I hope you've sent her a thank you note. It's very catchy.
That's why, this is supposed to look like a little house, but it's also the Knox Team, TKT, but it looks like a little house for new construction. It was all the same idea.
It's all very intentional. Brandon, I really appreciate your time today, man.
Thanks.